Hmm. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of Coffee Conversations. My name is Ghazal, and I started Milaap a year ago in March 2020, a support group that supports non-custodial parents on their journey with divorce, separation, and of course, dealing with our new life as non-custodial parents. I'm back here with a brand new episode with a very interesting man with a mission, and even more interesting is his work that he does. Parav Sahni is a relationship counselor who takes one-on-one sessions and leads workshops with a very popular one, the most popular one, Seeking Romance. So, welcome, Parav,
Hi, thanks, Gazil. Thanks for having me here.
and very happy that we are finally doing this.
Same here. I'm glad.
So, what made you finally zoom into the work of working with people on relationships?
Okay. So the thing that I figure, Gazil, is that if we are to seek anything deeper and anything more meaningful for our lives, deeper sense of contentment, which in psychological terms we call flow, for any such work, the surface level friction needs to settle. You can't go for a deep meditation if you have a throbbing headache. So a lot of people we are dealing with intimacy, relationship issues, especially the single ones, who've been divorced or who've had a lot of relationships and breakdowns there. And that sort of becomes the kind of, it's how we are perceiving life then through those glasses. Now with that, a deeper sense of contentment is always, if we're looking at it in the opposite. ये नहीं मिला तो ये करेंगे, ये नहीं था तो वैसे करेंगे. It's always from there. But it's not out of clarity. So what I realized is that as I can help and as I can contribute to people in their personal lives, once those things settle down for them, there's an opportunity. And the opportunity is to really live from clarity, live from a sense of freshness. So hence, I do what I do.
So I think this is one aspect. I don't think many people are looking at first cleaning the glass while they restart life. So in Milaap, we have a lot of discussion with members, and this is a topic which people often shy away from. Yet it's there on their mind and in their hearts. Is that as they begin their second innings, how do they get to find love again? And we've had a lot of discussions on Coffee Conversations about finding love. Yet it's a very elusive topic, and it's something that people still feel very inhibited to talk about, especially when it comes to looking within themselves and looking at aspects where they probably went wrong in their other earlier relationships. So now when they're embarking on this journey, maybe a lot of them in their 40s or even 50s, it's a bit of a daunting task getting into the dating circles again. Most of them don't even want to approach it as dating. So everybody has a different agenda. While marriage may not be on everybody's mind,
Yeah.
people are very skeptical about where and how to begin. So,
Huh.
in your work with people, how do you see people restarting their dating journeys again?
People usually do not connect with me before they're restarting their journeys. They connect with me after they have restarted long back and they're at the point of being cynical with the whole concept of finding intimacy ever again. And my work isn't about guiding them how to go around dating. It's really about freeing them from whatever baggage they're carrying from before, from whatever relationships and breakdowns that they've had, such that they see things afresh. Now, it's not about an avenue that people need. We are all, educated, smart people. It's not that we lack avenues. We go to work. The cities are bursting with humans. It's not that there are less people here. It's just what we are withholding. All of that stuff inside, lack of wanting to be vulnerable ever again. Giving another human being that opportunity to hurt me. I will never do that. Now, with those kind of guards up, if you're going to look for so-called love, tell me what are the possibilities. So that's what I do. I try to get people out of their own way, such that if it was to show up, they're available for it.
So, Parav, I see people shuttling between wanting to find companionship, wanting to find love, wanting to find marriage, and those not wanting to get into the circuit ever. I think we spoke about it that
Yeah.
they are carrying a lot of their baggage and the inability to open their heart once again, right? But I think this need to find companionship and intimacy, which is a larger, broader topic, is something which is not completely understood, right? So if people were to start, like you said, that people often come to you only once they've probably failed or they've made several unsuccessful attempts. If you were to give somebody advice on how to start correctly, what would that be?
Uh, like I said, it's about cleanup. Unless you have clarity, if you try to go out there, it's just a shot in the dark. You might get lucky, or you might get extremely cynical. And getting cynical is more likely.
Hmm.
If you're moving with clarity, which means that stuff that has happened before has been worked through, you're now aware of who you are, not who you were 20 years back when you met your ex-husband or ex-wife or anybody else. If you honor your own journey, if you respect your own growth, and you have clarity on where you are right now, what works and what doesn't work for you, you take things in your stride. People come, you meet people, they go. You are clear on what works for you, and such that only then you actually indulge in a relationship. That would be a good place to start inquiring, with a professional, uh, you know, where things were, how things are, and who you are today, what works and what doesn't work for you. And with that newfound clarity, something is possible.
So the work that you do with people, my question was more about how do you get to work with them? How do you get them to look at this aspect? So is it all self-directed, or is it a lot of coaching that you do for people? What is it that somebody can expect out of when they're working with you?
Yeah, Ghazal, I go for the kill. I look at the source of what is driving a person in a particular area that they want to work in. If they're talking, what are their patterns like? You would know this. A lot of people, we keep getting into this similar kind of relationships again and again and again and again,
Hmm.
and life is just going by. And it's not about trying to break that pattern at a surface level. It's about looking at the source of it.
Hmm.
So my job, so I can't answer that from a generic point of view that, okay, this is what I do for everybody. No, it's not like that. We have our impressions as we've grown up of what love language was in our family, what kind of communication was happening between the elders around us, what kind of movies we've watched, what kind of music we've heard, what kind of fantasies we've grown up with. All of that, creates us and what we think a great relationship would be. Now, till I can address that source and whatever has happened in a person's life, then there is an opportunity to help them see beyond it and choose something how they want to spend the rest of their life. That's the kind of work I do. It's
So
not
what you're saying is that there is a lot of inner work that you need to do, figure your
absolutely,
own self out. Because
absolutely.
if I were to go by the generic advice which is available on the net on dating, there are these rules which are laid down on
Uh-huh.
how to get
Tell
started,
me a
what to
few.
do on
Tell
the
me a few, Ghazal. What kind of rules? I've missed out on
um,
this. It seems.
conversation starters, what to say,
Ah.
what to do, because
Mm.
when we romanced in our 20s, and now when you're in your 40s or probably 50s, the world has really changed, right?
So
Um,
have we. I
while
hope.
that's what we probably don't realize. So there is a lot of nervous excitement about meeting people again, and there are a lot of avenues, as you said. One of some of the more popular ones, commercial ones, are the apps. So people who are in their 40s and 50s, which is a large segment of people that we have on Milaap, are still very skeptical about using dating apps because they're not sure about
Ah.
who is it that they can,
Yeah.
whom are they connecting with? Because it's a virtual world at the end of the day.
Sure.
And most of the connections are not what you would see. Um, how do you see, or what would you, I mean, I keep asking about this, the advice word, and I know that there is no generic advice that you would give
Hmm.
here, but people who are getting into the dating arena,
Yeah.
how would you actually help them to open their mind to exploring dating through the app?
See, like I said, uh, I'm not dealing with people who are in their early 20s, first time heading out there to date. These are people who've been out there. They meet hundreds of people at work, when they travel. They've been around. They've had their share of relationships. They've been on dating apps. But essentially, I think what you're asking me is about this fear of, what's really out there and how that can impact us, right? Now, here's how I look at it. One is, of course, there is this online concern, right? Identity. So you have to be protective of, your disclosure. Now, that's one aspect, that you have to take responsibility for it. Other than that, a lot of people who are on dating apps, for example, women will come and say, oh, men only want one thing. They just want to have sex. They don't want to have a relationship, especially not a long-term thing, all of that stuff, right? My approach to that is, if you're a if you're a vegetarian and you have a buffet laid in front of you, are you going to head for the non-vegetarian section? If you know what your appetite is, are you going to overstuff yourself and fill up your plate with food for 10 people? No. If you know your appetite and you know what kind of food works for you, even if there's a whole buffet laid out there, you straight head. If you want to have Italian, then you're going to have Italian. No pun intended. But that's what you're going to do. So it starts from clarity for you. If you
Yeah.
know yourself better today, you work through your baggage, then you just walk towards that. And along the way, of course, you might make a few mistakes, but not those are not as serious as we are living them in our head already before going out. That whole fear, you know, clarity is
Yeah.
important.
I think we're very afraid of making mistakes again, not realizing that that's one of the best ways to find out more about yourself. And when I was single, I think one of the some of the most wonderful experiences and learnings about myself came when I started dating using Tinder. And till then, I
Ah,
was very skeptical. But then each person that I met was like a revelation about what I really wanted and did not want. So I
mm,
think it's important to be vulnerable and say that I have better, I would not say better coping mechanisms now, and that meeting another human being doesn't always have to have an end result in mind. So I think
absolutely.
people have forgotten that it's okay to just meet another human being and then find love. So either people are in a terrible hurry to fast track the relationship to marriage, which is on their mind and which is okay, or not take the relationship anywhere because they are too scared to invest in a relationship again. So, I mean, these are some of the concerns that our members shared. And I have one very interesting question that a member posed,
Huh,
and they
tell me.
wanted to share this with you. Is again around dating, which is often used as a very casual word, and anybody who's looking at a more serious relationship does not want to go the dating way. So
Huh.
the question is that, are there any ground rules for casual dating that one should actually set out with the person that you are interacting with?
No,
Does it help
no,
to
no,
have
I don't think so.
rules?
No, it doesn't. To each their own, really. Really. Like you said, you went on Tinder, you had certain experiences. Another person in your circle would have gone and had completely different experiences. Would your rules work for that one? They won't. You're creating your own rules because they're about your boundaries, your kind of life, your desires, what you want your life to be like from the future. How can you have generic rules? I think the only thing is protect yourself.
Yeah.
As far as this online aspect, anonymity, or however you want to, how much information you divulge about yourself, your telephone numbers, where you stay, where you work, all of that is important. Besides that, what rules?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think you touched upon a very important point of setting healthy boundaries for yourself, and I think that's what helps us to also take time to heal. We've been reading a lot about healing after your intimate relationship
Ah,
ends, whether it's marriage or a significant relationship that you've had in life. Um, So when you say healing, does it completely mean an abstinence from relationships, or do you advise? I know it is person to person, or do you advise that people learn along the way as they go around meeting people? But what is your thought process about healing from
Okay.
relationships?
Okay. So, Ghazal, I think healing is a word which is used very loosely these days. Okay. Now, when you talk to me, I'm only talking about emotional pain, emotional healing, and none of the other metaphysical stuff that is thrown around very simply on the internet and everywhere right now. All kinds
Yeah.
of chakra healings and all sorts of energy stuff. And I'm not talking about that. If we're talking about relationships and emotional pain,
I'm talking about emotional
sure.
healing, especially when you end or a separation, which uh, I mean, I would say majorly is very acrimonious,
Mm,
especially in our country, around the
mm,
world as well. But
mm,
then when children are involved, when custody
mm.
maintenance is involved, there is a lot of bitterness and complete breakdown of
Yeah.
the essential trust that you had and the relationship you had. So, and
Yeah.
I think that is one of the biggest barriers which people put around themselves, almost like a wall. So the boundary
Mm,
becomes a wall,
mm.
and they don't want to trust. So
Yeah.
the healing that I'm talking about is healing from believing that all relationships that you get into will not end up with the same bitterness. That's the healing that I was talking about.
True, and more than that, also completion with whatever has happened is a very important aspect of that healing. And like you said, what do we do in the meanwhile? How do you heal? Now the question isn't about how much time to give it. A lot of people they identify healing with time. Abhi to you've just broken up, give it 6 months before you go into another. Oh, you've just broken up, it's just been 2 years, and wait it out and whatever. And I assert that healing is not a function of time. Healing is a function of what you choose to do in that time. Now, if you're going to sit by yourself and create these walls that you were talking about, and each passing day or month you make them higher, and then you create a moat around it, and then you put crocodiles around it, and now your 10 years are gone, and you're wondering, where is love? Well, that's not going to happen. And it's not
Right.
because that you are not lovable, it's because of the crocodiles, the fear of the walls and the moat, right? So it's about what do we do when a significant relationship has ended for us. See, a lot of people would ideally go into two different zones from here. One, they'll get into blaming either themselves or the other, or they'll quickly get into something which is a rebound. Because just dealing with that emotional upheaval at that time is so uncomfortable that we want, it's like a quick fix, instant gratification, something that can make them feel better. And in this case, it would be a relationship. And other versions of that are, of course, overeating and shopping and being frivolous and a lot of other things. It's just some way to feel validated, to feel that I'm okay. It's like just that little feel good factor, temporary to get through those emotions. But they never really go away. 5 years from then, one little trigger, you'll be back where you were 5 years ago. So it's about really working through that stuff and not really just brushing it aside with other things on it. So
Right.
work with somebody. This is the work I do after people have had a divorce or they're undergoing separation and they have these traumas or they start dating and they start noticing patterns for themselves, self-harm almost. And that's when we work through all of that. I have, in fact, as many of my clients would have gone on dating apps after working with me, probably the equal number of my clients, I've asked them to temporarily block themselves from it and remove and delete all of the dating apps for now till they work through things.
Yeah.
Because there is no real room for them to be in solitude, to be really thoughtful and mindful of where they are, what their life is about, how would they want to create it, because there is so much distraction, there's so much choice, it's so it's very addictive to be
Yeah.
constantly given attention to from people from the apps.
Right.
We need time, but we also need to figure out what are we doing in that time.
I think that's very beautifully said, that it's important what you're doing with that time. And I think the ability to first be with your own self and understand that these are patterns, like you said, and I have the ability to recurrently find the same pattern of people,
Yeah.
and that happens to be right from your childhood probably onwards. And I think the healing here is accepting yourself for what has happened, moving beyond the blame, shame, guilt of anybody else and your own self. And that can be very difficult and yet a very beautiful experience. It just depends on how you want to take it.
It's not
So
difficult, Ghazal. It's very, very rewarding. It's very freeing. And it's really the only way to find long-term contentment.
I say difficult because the whole idea of looking at our own self is not very easy. And very often, like you said, that we tend to get distracted with all of those, doing all of those things, because it's tough to sit with your own self. And I think that's where working with a coach like you really helps, because I did that, and I'm doing that currently, is taking help from a therapist. And I said the word difficult because I have this tendency to run away from
Oh,
addressing my own issues.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think it's as you said, it's very rewarding in the end to look at a new version of you and say
Yeah.
that even though you may be, in your late 40s or 50s, there is still an ability to clean the slate and then move
Oh,
on.
absolutely. Absolutely. I've got a client who's 60-year-old and she's dating very successfully right now and
That's
having
really
a
wonderful.
fabulous, joyful relationship with somebody she recently met. Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful age to date again,
Every age is
because
wonderful to date.
yeah, I said this because my next question that one of our members has posed is about children,
Hmm.
and that while people have the responsibility of, as a single parent looking after their children,
Hmm.
sometimes custodial and sometimes non-custodial,
Hmm.
they when they find somebody, they find it increasingly tough to share that with their children and bring it up,
Hmm.
because you have this dynamics of their own parent, and yet seeing somebody else walk into their parents' life.
Yeah.
Do you come across people whom you work with who are faced with this dilemma about how do they introduce their children to their new partners?
Yeah. So let's go one step before this. It's really about seeing that you're an individual before you're a parent. This is how I look at things.
Hmm.
You, as the mother, as the daughter, as the wife, as the girlfriend, as whoever, comes secondary. You, as the individual, comes first. So, although we are a parent, but at the same time, I'm also this individual who's got needs and desires, and there are things I want for myself in my life. And it's not about either or. It's not about ignoring what the children want or or putting your stuff first. It's not a conflict really. It's a healthy relationship once you have that with yourself,
Hmm.
and it comes through with your relationship with your children in
Hmm.
communication. It's effortless. The struggle people have is because they're so guilt ridden after their breakdowns, either divorces, that they now want to, kind of over pamper, they become overprotective
Hmm.
and they, just want to shield everything. And that's not what it is about at all. It's about clarity, it's about communication in the family. And you're talking about it with your children. It's also about your own parents if they're around. You know, people who've, let's say, a couple of my clients who are after their divorces, they move back with their parents or something. It's the same thing.
Hmm.
See, what do our loved ones want for us? They don't want this cynical person walking around being like a helicopter parent. That's not what they want.
Yeah.
They want a joyful parent around, somebody who can inspire them, somebody who's really
Hmm.
living their life. After all, what is the point of a divorce then? If you're really
Hmm.
not really completely enjoying and living your life out there, you were
Yeah.
suffocating. Or there were some other reasons in your breakdown. And now, if you're not looking beyond that, then what's the point of it? Might as well
Hmm.
continue to suffer. So it's really about clarity. It's about communication in the family. And I think out of that, it becomes effortless. You don't have to pre plan this or something.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I think one of the beautiful things which people can learn is to recommunicate with their own families and children. So that doesn't have to be only because you're dating and you found somebody. It is probably a new way of life that you're learning.
It's you're
So as
recreating your life.
yeah,
You're recreating your entire life. Your intimate relationships are just one aspect of it. It could be your professional life as well that you're recreating. It could be your physical system that you're recreating. So it's about recreating your individuality, honoring it, respecting it enough, and communicating with the loved ones about it. The rest of the things will follow.
right. Yeah, I think that's really very well said about communication. And
Yeah,
as we have a lot of members who are non-custodial parents, which and now that they are learning that they are not spending their entire waking hours with the other parent, with the child. They are learning new ways of communicating with the children, keeping the doors open, and vice versa as well, right? The children, they expect the children to also be able to communicate very authentically and honestly with them. So I think it's a two-way street, and they can't be, you don't need to be 24/7 with your child to be able to find very honest, open communication. You can really build that in. So that is something that a lot of our members grapple with because they're still in this whole victim mentality that I have been taken away from my child. And a lot of our forums and discussions and guest speakers often talk about the need for finding better ways to communicate and relate with your children if you are not living with them in the same house. So I think this goes a long way in also addressing the challenge that they feel when they find somebody else
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
sharing that with their children.
I think
Okay.
really about, uh, just clean house, firstly. Whatever is pending for you, all that emotional backlog, clean house. Work with somebody through that. And time, it's right now. This is our life today, right now. There's so much has happened. This corona and everything. The dynamics of meeting people has changed. Do not take it for granted. If intimacy is what you seek, please do unabashedly. On, be vulnerable, be open. Relationships are a function of vulnerability. There's not a single powerful, intimate relationship any human being has experienced ever without any vulnerability involved. And here we are trying to avoid vulnerability altogether. So I would say it's okay to be vulnerable. Just work with clarity and go ahead.
And the third one, I
Take it
think
easy.
I
Just
think the
take it a
third.
little lightly. That's the third one. Take yourselves a little lightly. The significance we've attached with our breakdowns and who we are today, it needs to come down every now and then. It needs to be shaken up. We got to take ourselves lightly. I know I take myself very lightly. That's the one. Yeah.
I think that's amazing, and I think I love the three tips that you've given there for members. So I know this is going to be watched by a lot of people on Milaap as well as everybody who follows us on our Facebook page. So I want to thank you again once again, Parav, for taking the time out and doing this and sharing your insights and work with all of us, which is really important as we move ahead in our journey, not just for relationships, but I think for reinventing and rediscovering
Self
a
growth
new essence.
itself.
Absolutely. I think it's just
Yeah.
the relationship, finding the relationship is just a part of it. The important thing is finding your own self.
Yep. You're right. Well put. Relationship itself, first and foremost.
Right.
And thank you for the opportunity to share my views. And I'm available on Instagram as Coach Parav. So if, in case anybody wants to reach out for coaching, that's where they can do that.
Thank you. And we will put the link there. So anybody who's watching and wants to get in touch with Parav, please look at the link that is available. In case you're a non-custodial parent or anybody who's on this journey of co-parenting and a strong believer in that, please look us up on Facebook. We put the link there on the comments column. Big thank you to everybody who has been supporting Milaap and in the journey that all of us are taking in finding ourselves, learning more about co-parenting, learning more about the entire support system or support group that is needed to deal with a life-changing experience like divorce or separation. Big thank you, because I know that your support and help to somebody who's going through this means a lot. And lastly, but more significantly, to everybody who's been watching our coffee conversations and spreading the good word, thank you and God bless.